So another week comes and goes. Welcome to Championship Rugby League with Craig Lingard. Craig, good morning.
Good morning. How are we?
I'm very well indeed. Let's go through it. Let's start Challenge Cup, of course, round number 3. But before we get to that, Halifax Panthers, that caught me completely by surprise this week. I hadn't heard any mumblings whatsoever, and then all of a sudden out it comes. Had you heard any mumblings on Halifax's predicament?
Yeah, it's been one of them things that seems to have been bubbling under the scenes, behind the scenes, for quite a while. There's always been little bits of rumours that there's been some sort of financial issues that have been going on, but obviously they've been carrying on as per normal, and you sort of then wonder, is it somebody that's over exaggerating what's going on? But then obviously Friday night, we were prepping to play over in Warrington. Had a chat with someone, and they said that they were going to this High Court meeting on Monday, and it weren't looking good. And then obviously the news came out yesterday that everybody feared. But yeah, it seems to have come out of the blue for everybody else, I guess. Not like the Featherstone and the Salford, which were quite open to the public, and everybody knew what the situation was and what were going on. But it just seems to have come out of the blue to everybody else. But like I said, behind the scenes, there had been some rumblings for quite a while. I think it's dating back to 2024.
Well, I mean, I've heard a few people talk about maybe Ken Davey here in terms of the Huddersfield short-term piece. Is that going to come to fruition to help the club? I mean, it's a tragedy, really, because Halifax, to be fair to them, have been competitive, haven't they? They're a decent championship side, and, you know, like Featherstone before, and this would be a really bad start to the season if Halifax was to go.
It would, yeah. I think any club, like obviously Salford had their issues. They've come back in a Phoenix club. Featherstone looks like they're going to be at least, hopefully next year now at the very earliest, and losing potentially more clubs than we need to do. So some really historic clubs, and I think it highlights a wider issue within the game that's probably a little bit deeper for this conversation here. But yeah, a club like Halifax, who have always been a top end championship team, that I guess it's getting that balance of trying to punch above your weight and get your expectations realistic, really. To obviously Halifax have been in Super League, and they obviously want to get back there, but it's having that realistic ambition. Is it with the finances that the game has got now, the lack of finances that the game has got now? Does every club need to cut the cloth accordingly?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting one. Just on that, because obviously we were having discussions on our weekly show last night in terms of the financial element of the Challenge Cup third round, and does it really benefit the teams? I mean, taking Workington Town as an example, against St Helens, they got just over 4,000 fans in the stadium. Would that have made them significant money?
Yeah, you would have said so. I mean, I don't know what the ticket prices they were charging there, but if you average the ticket prices at a tenner each, with offsetting the kids and the adults, you're looking at 40 grand there.
Yeah. Cost of putting it on?
Say again, sorry?
How much would you say the cost of putting that game on was to Workington?
It's their own ground, isn't it? So they've not got the some of the overheads that other clubs have got if they're tenants in another ground. So it's every penny they get is profit as well. So I don't know. You ever looking at stewarding and the cost of the coach and stuff? It might be $5 grand. I don't know. But then you've got the gate receipts to split 50-50 out there. So it would have been a really decent payday for them. I would imagine. Right. You would have thought that there's a couple of decent players there that they can then afford for next season. Yeah, so it is considerable for clubs like Championship clubs, because the distribution money in Rugby League now is that small for Championship clubs compared to Super League clubs. 1.5 million, and the Championship clubs, it can be anything up to sort of 80, 90, 100,000 pound. And that's at the very, very top end. So asking clubs to run on the distribution money that they're getting, it's very, very minimal, and having to generate their own funds. So I challenge any club, even in Super League, that you take that 1.5 million pound off Super League clubs and they'll be struggling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We wish nothing but the best to Halifax Panthers supporters. It's always the supporters and the staff that you always feel for. It's those people, not only the players, but it's the people behind the scenes, isn't it? Again, these are worrying times for them, and of course, the supporters who have invested their lives in the club. These things really matter. So we wish Halifax Panthers well. We may as well start there, actually. Gould Vikings went to Halifax at the weekend. You know, Ollie Morgan watch. Another
Yeah,
try.
I'm waiting for that one, mate. I'm waiting for that one.
Another try for Ollie Morgan. But
Yeah.
you know what? A really good game of rugby league. You know, a real tight one. And again, you know, it's like I'm a broken record, but good on Ghoul Vikings. You know, they just continue to be prominent, don't they? It's again, just talks about Halifax and the plight of Halifax on the other side of the coin. Ghoul doing a lot right, aren't they?
Yeah, Ghoul started really well last year, inaugural year last year, and they laid some real good foundations. And then the players that they brought in this year that strengthened significantly and brought in somebody like the calibre of Liam Watts that can attract people like that now, ex-Super League man of steel, played numerous games at the top level, and think attract players of his calibre. It just shows how far they've come, and for them to get a massive victory against a team like Halifax, who've been at the top end of the championship year after year after year, just shows that they're doing everything right.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair to Ghoul, you know, Halifax were coming strong at the end of that game, and you know, they managed to hold out for what for them is an incredible win. So many congratulations to them. We'll go to the Halliwell Jones. We'll go. Obviously, we were in each other's company on Friday night, and I said to you at the time, I thought first half Sheffield really did attribute themselves very well. There was a lot to be happy about, I'm sure, as their head coach going up against a very strong Warrington outfit.
Yeah, absolutely. There were certain things that we were looking at as a coaching group that we wanted to see where we were as a group, and we ticked a lot of boxes there. It were very reassuring for us. I think the togetherness that we showed, the work rate that we showed, we handled a little bit, being put under a little bit of pressure as well. And we went 2 scores down. I think we're getting to the game pretty well. It was 15-20 minutes in, and we conceded a couple of quick tries, and it went to 10-0. And then at that point, you're sort of thinking another quick try here from Warrington, the game could get away from you. But we actually came back even stronger and scored the next try and brought it back to 10-6. And to bounce back from a couple of quick scores, it just shows that there's some resilience there, there's some fight in the group. And we were actually disappointed to concede a try so late on in the first half and go in 2 scores down, where, you know, I thought for the efforts that we put in that, I thought a 10-6 scoreline at half time would have been fair. But, you know, quality teams like Warrington, that's what they do. You give them half a chance and they just take it. And we just give them too many milliseconds on an edge, and they can just catch and pass, and before you know it, they're in at the corner. And, you know, the skill they've got, the quality of players, they punish you if you give them that millisecond.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Obviously, I was sat behind you in terms of hearing all the vocab that you were having with the sideline, etc., on the night. And I have to say, Mr. Morgan took his try very well, and you had a big smile on your face, because that was something that you told me that you discussed prior to the game, and it came off. For the people that are watching, explain what you told me. The Kai Morgan try, that wasn't a fluke, was it, Craig?
No, we'd prepped on that, to be honest, and we thought that when Warrington are defending in their own 20-metre area, the back row sits off a little bit and the half-back gets a bit high, I think, just to try and spook you to come back on the inside. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the 3-man defender and the 4-man defender. So we just doubled up with 2 pivots, just running in that same hole on the inside shoulder, the half-back, the outside shoulder of the back row, and then it were down to us other pivot to pick the right pass, and luckily Jordan Lilly picked the right pass, which was Kai Morgan, and he went through untouched and scored. So it's always pleasing as a coach when you prep something and it comes off and the players actually take it on board and they execute it as well. And there were a couple of times where we nearly got them with a similar sort of play. So it's really pleasing that the signs are there, that we've got the intelligence and we've got the application to take on that information and actually execute it as well.
Yeah, I have to say, I think he had the biggest smile in the Halliwell Jones Stadium when that one went in, mate. It was good to see. Just very briefly, I mean, you were surprised when I told you young Tommy Rhodes, of course, came on and scored a try, and you nearly fell off your chair when I told you he was 16 years of age. It's fair to say Warrington have got some pretty exciting young players there.
Yeah, definitely. And we've spoke previously about this. I think what they're doing this year is 100% the right thing to do. I think they've put a lot of faith in the younger players this year, and you know, it might be a season of discovery for some of these players as well. So there might be some highs, there might be some lows, and there might be a little bit of lack of consistency at times with some of the performances. But I think if you can get a real good 12 months with a lot of these young kids that are coming through now and build for the future, the next 12 months following this and 24 months down the line, then they're in, I think, a real good position if you can keep all these people together, into clearing a bit of money off the budget at the end of the year with some players leaving as well. It'll allow them to bring some potentially high profile players in as well and build a team longer term around these younger kids that are coming through. And I guess it's the model that Wigan have had a lot of success with over the years. St Helens have had a lot of success with it over the years as well. So it's a tried and tested model, and financially as well, from a business point of view, if you can bring your own kids through, if it saves you a lot of money, because if you're having to bring the same caliber players into the club from external, it's going to cost you twice as much money to bring them in. So the more players that you can get through your systems, the better financially it is for you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, no shocks, no surprises really in the third round. Before we get into some of the tighter contests, blowout scores in the Challenge Cup, Craig. I mean, does it help the sport? I mean, I know it helps. You say it helps the clubs that are underneath Super League, potentially from a financial perspective, and I get that. But as a sport that, broadcast deals, things like that, your thoughts on it in terms of some of these scores, 104. I mean, we expected Lock Lane to be 100, but, Workington 2, Saints 98. I mean, to the outside world looking in, that's not going to get people watching early rounds of Challenge Cups, is it?
It's not, no, but I think you've got to take it for what it is, and for what it is, because the difference between the Super League and the Championship, and I guess the top end of Super League and the lower end of the Championship, it's enormous. You can't underestimate how enormous that gap is, and that gap's been allowed to increase year after year after year, and it should be no surprise. But I think we've got to take this round of the cup for what it is, and it's, I guess, for the Super League teams, it's maybe a competitive friendly for them building into the Super League season. For the teams outside Super League, they want to survive. They want as much money as they possibly can, and if they can get a lucrative tie against a Super League team like Workington have done, they've been beat by a lot of points, but they've got some money into the club, which will help them survive this year and hopefully build a better squad for next year as well. So I think we've got to take it with a pinch of salt. Does it look great? I don't know. Externally, how many eyes on Rugby League anyway? It's only, I think it's only internally that we maybe complain about this sport. So I don't think anybody complains when you see the FA Cup and the Premier League team score 6, 7 or 8 goals against the League One, League Two or a non-league team. So I think you've got to take it for what it is. It's the realism of where certain clubs are, and the years and years and years of financial stability and development that Super League clubs have had, that you're bound to get that disparity in some scorelines.
Fair enough. I mean, you talk about competitive friendlies. We'll get to them. We'll also get to some really tight championship on championship contests. Let's first of all though, one of the explain this to me. I was amazed at this. Oldham 46, Dewsbury Rams 0. Now that absolutely astonished me. I mean, Dewsbury, have won the first 2 games in the championship, and they've lost 46-0. I mean, that must have, like me, you must have been scratching your head on that, surely.
No, not necessarily. I don't think I was. We know what sort of team Oldham have got. They finished top 4 in the championship last year, so they are a top quality side. They've got ex-Super League players. They've got top quality championship players coming out of their ears. So I know they've had a little bit of off-field disruption, and that could impact what's going on. But you look at the players that they're leaving out of the team that aren't even getting in. They walk into any other championship team. So if they hit the straps this year at Oldham, they could be anything. That's the positive for them. And I think for Dewsbury coming up into the merged championship, so to speak, they've been down in League One for a number of years now as well. So let's not forget they're actually a League One team. Moving up into the championship, just because the leagues have been merged. If the leagues wouldn't have been merged, there's still been a little League One team. So again, we've got to have that realism. And they've won 2 games at the start of the season. That's brilliant for them. But let's not take away, I guess, the actual realism of what they're going to achieve this year. You're not expecting them to be top 4, top 5 in the championship. They're in a development stage themselves. They've got a lot of younger players coming through, a lot of players from the amateur game as well that are looking at trying to develop their game as well. So I think we've got to be realistic about where Dewsbury are and what they're going to achieve this year. I think how they've started this league campaign with 2 wins is first class for them. But I certainly weren't surprised by that scoreline.
Maybe I was surprised by the 0 then. Maybe that was what surprised me more. I don't know. I just, when I saw it, I was like, really? 46-0? Wow. But anyway, well done to Oldham. And again, great for their supporters. In a week where, and again, another statement came out yesterday from Bill Quinn, but in a week where Oldham fans might be sitting there thinking, well, what's going on? For them to have got a good win in the cup, that's going to make them feel a little bit better about life, isn't it?
It will, yeah. I'm not sure they'll be feeling great about the next round. Have they got Catalans away? Is that all they've got?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
So again, it'll be good for them as players to test themselves against a real top quality team. But for the club, you want maybe more of a local game with a little bit more of a financial element of a bonus for it as well. But they're not going to get that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and going back to our initial discussion on that, I mean, so that's probably going to cost. I mean, that will cost them money, won't it? For that one. So from an Oldham perspective, only 741 went to that game, and again, probably not surprised. I mean, some people might be, talking with the feet in terms of their disappointment in terms of what's gone on with Mike Ford, etc. Hopefully that attendance is improve again. But now they've got to go and travel to Catalan. Rather than being a benefit, it's probably going to be a cost now to Oldham, is it?
Yeah, I would have thought so as well. And I think part of the reason why certain people don't go to a Challenge Cup game as well is because they're not included in the season ticket prices. So some of the supporters will say, "Well, I paid for a season ticket. I don't want to pay admission for a Challenge Cup game as well." But unfortunately, the Challenge Cup games they're a split gate, so you can't take a season ticket cost and include them in the cost of the season ticket, should I say. You've got to split the cost 50-50, and that's why all Challenge Cup games are pay on the gate games. And I can understand in the financial climate that we're in that a lot of people, if they're spending in excess of £200 for a season ticket, then spending another £20 on one game doesn't seem realistic or viable for them. But sometimes that's why the attendance are a little bit lower.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, and forgive me for this. I've not really kept my ear to the ground on it. I'll be very, very honest. But like in an Oldham situation there, in some of these, and I know it's Russian roulette when you try these type of strategies, but you say 20 quid there to get in. Opposed to you, and if the ticket price was a tenner, kids go free, would they have got a bigger crowd?
How many more would they have got?
I don't know, and that's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, they might have got another 50 or 75 people coming through, but then if you're half in the cost of everybody else getting, you're probably going to lose even more money. And the ticket prices, the admission price, have got to be agreed by both parties as well. So it's getting that fine balance of getting people through the gate, and if you're letting people come in for free, then you're not making any money on it as a team anyway. So I guess it defeats the purpose of an away team allowing anybody to come in for free, because the only team that is going to then make any money is the home team on the money that they spend in the ground. So it's no benefit for the away team to have a zero fee admission.
No, I'd be interested to see of those 741 how many were sub 12 years old. I'm sure they look at these analytics, and obviously it's like everything, isn't it? If you can attract the kids, the parents have got to bring them, haven't they? And there's that. But anyway, that's by the by. You talk about, we talk about competitive runouts. Barrow 6, York 32, 6-14 at half time. Mark Applegarth, I mean, he'll be pleased with the win. Of course he will. It was competitive, terrible conditions. I mean, I think most people suffered in terms of the conditions at the weekend. But, if you're Mark Applegarth, would you rather let's compare and contrast the tale of two teams, shall we? So two teams that many people will have in the bottom half of the table of Super League this season would be Huddersfield Giants, albeit they could surprise if they're injury free, but most pundits will have them in the bottom half of the table. And York, Huddersfield 52, Hunslet 6, York 32, Barrow 6, both pretty comfortable scorelines. As a coach, would you, from a Super League perspective, and I'll use Warrington as the same example, a week out from Super League, would you want a really good, solid, competitive game in round 3 as opposed to a blowout? Do you learn more about your team's preparation and where you're at if it's a grind as opposed to a blowout? Over to you.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and I've always said this about friendlies as well. The last thing I want in a friendly, I know we're not talking, these are competitive games, but as an head coach, the last thing that you want in a friendly is to win by 40 or 50 points, because then that lets your team think that they've nailed everything in pre-season. There's nothing to improve on. They're in a great position. You want to be punched on the end of the nose a few times in a friendly. You don't want to be cohesive, because as a coach, if you can win the game, great. But then if you've conceded a couple of tries, if your attack's been a little bit off, if other details within your game aren't actually where they need to be, then that's a perfect result, because then you can go back and say, look, really pleased that we've got through the game, we've got the victory, but these areas aren't good enough, and we need to get better in these areas, because when we play the likes of Hull KR, Wigan, Saints, Warrington, whoever it might be, then we're going to get picked apart in these areas, so we need to get better. Mark Applegarth will be delighted. They've got the victory. Really poor conditions. Man sent off. I think they were down to 11 men at one point as well. And they've come through the other side and they've got the victory. They're a brand new team in Super League, first time as full time players as well. A lot of rotations of players coming in and players going out as well. So there'll be a lot of new connections that they'll be wanting to develop. So for him to get that victory, get through to the next round, learn a lot about the team. There'll be a lot of areas for improvement as well that he can then go back on a training night and say, look, these areas weren't good enough. If we're playing the likes of Hull KR, Wigan, Saints, Warrington, whatever it might be in Super League, if we play like this, we're going to get picked off. So it'll have highlighted some areas for development for him, but also shown some, a little bit of resilience, a little bit of toughness, and to get through a game up at Barrow in them conditions, will be really, really pleased.
Yeah, I'll tell you a coach who really would have probably breathed a little bit of a sigh. In fact, two actually. Let's start at Widnes Vikings. I thought Widnes put up a decent show against Leeds. That was not a comfortable win at all from the Leeds Rhinos. I think they've been very, very pleased when they finally broke free to go 24-12 up in that game, because there's no doubt about it for me. Widnes were right in the game, and Jordan Abdul again just showed that he's, regardless of his age and regardless of people talk about his condition in terms of his fitness and the way, but that guy can half marshal a team around the field.
No, as an halfback, he don't need to get tackled, does he? Because the stuff that he's doing, he's moving the team around the field, managing the game, the end of sets that he's got, the nous and the intelligence is, he's probably not where he wants to be in the physical sense, and it's probably not the best condition he's been in his career. But you can't take away that rugby knowledge from somebody, and that can buy you an extra 2 or 3 yards of just having that knowledge about knowing where to be, where to stand, what to do. And we've seen a lot of good halfbacks play over the years that seem to have that ability to not get tackled, or just to avoid certain confrontations and get through a game untouched. And he seems to have that at this moment in time for Widnes. And I watched the game myself, and I thought they were really unlucky at times. And it's then you go back to the 6 agains and penalties for ruck infringements, that the 50-50, and they can go either way on the referee's interpretation. I think maybe a couple of slightly different decisions that have gone their way. It might have been different, but I think flipping that to Brad Arthur with a number of players that they had out, and playing with only one recognised halfback as well, I guess that he'll be really pleased with some of the stuff that he saw from his team with the backs against the walls at particular points during the game. Again, dealing with a lot of adversity, you find out a lot more about your teams in them sort of conditions. I've always said it's great when everybody can play when the sun's shining, the bounce of the ball's going your way, you've got the sun on your back, and the grounds are firm. You find out more about your team when it's wet, it's windy, it's rain, and you've got things you're defending your own goal line. That's where you find out the true value in your team, what characters that you've got. So I think you'll be really pleased to have that test, but come through the other side and get into the next round.
Couldn't agree with you more. I thought the Riley Lund try, though, take about Riley. That was a lovely bit of performance there. And then, we said last week that the tie that looked, if there was going to be an upset, we felt it was going to be London against Bradford. That was where it was. And I think, Kurt Hegarty will be very relieved, because, again, London really did do very well in that game, really, really well in that game. And, of course, they had massive interchange problems.
Yeah.
They were down on subs very, very early in that match. Had they have had a full interchange, it could have been very interesting, couldn't it? Yeah,
it could. And I thought it was interesting through that first half as well. And I think there were periods in that game. Certainly, I thought Bradford had the better of the first 15, 20 minutes. And I was watching it thinking, well, another score and Bradford could pull away. But then London showed a lot of resilience and got back in the game. And then I thought they had Bradford on the ropes a little bit. They looked a little bit fatigued at times. Did Bradford coming down the middle, and London got the next 2 scores, and it was a bit of a seesaw battle. And I think we've seen a lot in that game about what we're going to expect from Bradford this year. I think they're not going to die wondering. They're going to play from anywhere on the field, and they might concede a lot of points, but they might score a lot of points as well. And as you said, London suffered with injuries, lost all the rotation in that first half. I think they played the last 15, 20 minutes of the game as well with only 12 men on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd tell you what surprised me in this game. Really surprised me, and I don't know if you saw it the same way. Joe Mellor got man of the match. I thought Joe had a decent game, but I thought Joe Keys was exceptional. The
Yeah.
amount of times he was breaking the line in attack, I thought he had a great game, Joe Keys.
Yeah, I thought I did. I think again, we talk about halfbacks that seem to have a lot of time. When Joe Keys is on it, he's a top quality half in any division, and hopefully he gets the opportunity this year. I think looking at the team that Bradford picked, went 1-17 apart from Nicarima, I think so. Yeah. That it gives an indication of, I guess, where Kurt Eggett sees his team. But I actually agreed that I thought Joe Mellor was the difference in the team. I thought playing at 13 and the amount of times that he got his hands on the ball, I think that actually contributed to letting Joe Keys do what he did as well. I think with the deception that Joe Mellor had around the middle of the park and distributing the ball, the inside options, outside options, that when it did go to the edges and Joe Keys had that ball, he made the right decisions when to pass and when to run. So I thought they combined pretty well as a collective.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. What I would say is that I think when they were deliberating, he was getting the man of the match. I don't think Joe got a mention. I was like, really? Yeah. I just thought Joe had a really, really good game. And like I say, deputising for Nicarima. Fair play to him, and he'll probably get a run out this weekend as well, which will be interesting to see. So, and I thought, and that was pretty much it. Everything else went exactly to type. There was a good close contest involving Midland Hurricanes and Keighley Cougars 18-14. That was a fine game indeed. That try again, another late try. Yeah. These championship teams, they keep delivering, don't they? A 79-minute try after a 76-minute try from Keighley. Hurricanes were right in the box seat, and then Keighley in the last 5 minutes break their heart with 2 late tries. And this is what I mean about championship rugby. Yeah. We were talking about this last week, weren't we? The amount of times it goes to the wire. It's entertaining. If you like your rugby league close, championship rugby league's the place to be, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've seen it already in the first few weeks of championship. The number of games that are decided in the last 5 minutes of the game. It just shows how close these games are. And we are at the start of the season. Teams are finding their feet and learning about themselves and areas where they need to improve. And Keith and other team, Ian Hardman, his first game as head coach, he'll be delighted getting that victory. He'll have seen a lot of positives from his team with their durability to go to the last minute of the game, pretty much the last play of the game to score and win. And I think conversely to that, I think Mark Dunn will be pulling his head out a little bit. That they seem a little bit inconsistent, shall we say? That 1 week they're great, 1 week they're maybe not so good. So he'll be trying to get that consistency into his team. But again, they've brought a lot of new players in, a lot of brand new halfbacks as well. And we've talked about that with us at Sheffield. And connections need to develop, and it doesn't just happen overnight. And you can have a great pre-season, but you're not getting sat on your backside in pre-season. You've not got another team that are running 100% in pre-season. So it normally takes probably that sort of 4 or 5 weeks at the start of the season where you just need to start developing them connections and getting some sort of consistency.
Absolutely. And on that, let's turn our attention very quickly to round 3 and what's coming up this weekend. And Gould Vikings, we've just mentioned Gould going up against Midland Hurricanes, 2 teams that have got big aspirations, going toe-to-toe. Both 1 win, 1 loss thus far in the championship. Mm-hmm. This has got the makings of a real good tussle for me.
It has on paper. If you're looking at any game this week on paper as the one to watch, I think it's this one. 2 teams that are relatively new, aren't they, in respect of their introduction to rugby league, and I think both teams going the right way, and I think both teams are a real positive story for rugby league as well. I think we tend to focus on the negatives of rugby league, and obviously we've spoken about Halifax as well, but let's look at these 2 teams that seem to be doing everything right and making the right strides and positive strides forward. And I think this has got, again, all the hallmarks of a close game, and it could potentially be another game that's decided right at the death again.
Absolutely. All eyes on Ollie Morgan watch. And of course, great tie for Ollie. Gould Warrington in the 4th round. Yeah. Ollie will have been absolutely over the moon with that. We wish Ollie well.
I think that's a new segment as well, mate. It's got to be a new segment.
Ollie Morgan watch, mate. I tell you, Ollie's a player. I hope Ollie's tuning in. He's a player, he's Ollie. One to watch for the future, that boy. No doubt about it. North Wales Crusaders, Swinton Lions. One of these 2 teams are going to get their first win of the campaign. Who would you fancy in this one?
If I had to put a bet on it, I'd probably back in North Wales.
Yeah,
I think. I think looking at the strengths of the squads and particularly what North Wales did last year as well, I think they're probably slightly further on in their development at this moment in time where Swinton are. But we've seen games this season go opposite ways to what you maybe think on paper. So again, potential to be another close game, but I will be edging just slightly towards North Wales on that one.
Fair enough. Batley Bulldogs, of course, they're searching for the first win of the campaign. They're going to go up against Donny, having lost to Castleford at the weekend 14-0. Over to you. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it'll be a tough game. I think just on Batley getting beat by Catalan in the Challenge Cup. I think everybody's seen the first 9 seconds of that game, haven't we? Where Catalan kick off and then score. I think fastest Challenge Cup try. So not the greatest start that you want as a coach when you're facing Catalans up the hill at Batley on a very, very wet, rainy, miserable day. So I think with Doncaster as well, they got back. I think from a disappointing defeat against Midlands, they came back and played Castleford in that cup, and I think put in a real good performance. I think again we've probably seen the comments around the 6 agains and the management of the ruck and the interpretations of that from Carl Hall with his video, and I think we're going to get some of that this season, particularly early on, the frustrations around what this management of the 6 again is, and I think we need a little bit of common sense. Whether it's, I don't know whether they're working to a particular time limit per ruck of a 3-second ruck or a 4-second ruck, but every ruck in rugby league is different. You know, if you've got 3 men in the tackle and you sit a defender on his backside and you've got two defenders on top and one around the legs, that to me says that you can buy an extra second there.
You're dominant, aren't you? In the
yeah, if the attacker carries through, pokes his nose through, finds his elbows and knees, then he's won the right to play slightly quicker. So rather than having an average play of the ball, I think we've got to determine it based on the actual ruck itself. But that's digressing slightly. But I think it's going to be an interesting tie as this one against with Doncaster and Batley. You'd probably say on paper Doncaster are the stronger squad and the more complete squad. But my years at Batley, and I know that team never goes away. I know that you can't predict what Batley are going to do, and you might think there's a game that they're going to lose, but then they turn around and they win it. So I don't want to. I'm going to have splinters in the backside on this one. I'm going to sit on the fence.
Can't believe you're sitting on the fence where
I am, mate. I am.
Oh, wow. Right. I mean, as fate would have it, you're down to play Halifax this weekend. First of all, people will be asking, to your knowledge, is this game going ahead?
We, as of last night, as of 5 o'clock last night, the message that we got from the RFL was that we're prepping as if we are playing. I'm led to believe that Halifax had a meeting last night with the players and staff, and I think the feedback that came back from that was quite positive, that they're positive that the game will go ahead. How realistic it is or not, I don't know. But we spoke to our players last night at training and just said, look, we can't control things external from us, so we'll prep as if we are playing, and we'll just concentrate solely on us, and whatever happens. But as at the minute, we're expecting to play on Sunday.
And of course, the obvious question: Oldham 46, Dewsbury Rams 0. Oldham, with what was going on off field last week, absolutely rallied. Game goes ahead. Is this a good or a bad time to play Halifax? It could be us against the world, couldn't it, where Halifax is concerned?
Yeah, again, it's one of them. You don't know if it does go ahead. You don't know are all the players going to make themselves available, because it's a job at the end of the day, and if there's that insecurity about whether the club's going to be there next week or the week after, and they put their hand up to play and then they get injured and then they're out of a job and they're injured and they can't get another club, So I guess there's that element of it. There's also the other element of it. Does it galvanise them? It's the backs to the walls, like you say. It's us against the world, and they grow an extra arm and they grow an extra leg. It's that beast that could be unleashed, isn't it? So it's we're going to prep as best as we possibly can. That we're expecting to play the best Halifax team that's going to be out there.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Then Newcastle Thunder go up against Dewsbury Rams. Both of these two teams having won their first two games of the season. Of course, you've been championing Newcastle all season thus far. Will home advantage put this in the favour of Newcastle, do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I think they're a different animal this year in Newcastle, out there, with their connection with York and the access to the players that they've got as well. So you would expect that Newcastle will be slightly too strong, but Dewsbury be licking the wounds from that cup performance against Oldham and wanting to maintain their unbeaten from the start of the season. But like I say, I'm favouring Newcastle on that one.
And then two different fortunes go head-to-head. Rochdale, of course, battered 83-0 by Wigan at the weekend. Keighley, of course, coming through that tight battle with the Midland Hurricanes. Rochdale, though, at home. How do you see this one?
Again, another exciting game. I think it's two teams that will probably be looking at each other. Again, we've mentioned previous weeks at the start of the season, these are the games that they're highlighting that they need to be beating. They need to be winning to get as high up the table as they possibly can. A 4-point game at this early stage of the season. Both teams on decent form. I think Rochdale won their first 2 league games of the season. I think they have, and they were being buoyed by that cup victory last week. So I think it's a really a good mouth-watering tie that could be very, very close, and again decided late on.
Salford go up against Hunslet, two teams again that are yet to get off the mark. One of them will. Would you be backing Salford at home or Hunslet away?
Again, it's a difficult one. Is this one? Again, it could go either way. I'd probably sway slightly towards Hunslet. I just think with Salford being a brand new team, and they've had a brand new squad that have been chucked together. We know we've talked about new players coming into groups and developing connections, but it is pretty much a brand new Salford squad, and they'll get better week on week on week. And I guess they'll be looking at this game this weekend as a home fixture against Hunslet and thinking, look, we've got a real good opportunity here. I think Hunslet may be a bit more established and more settled as a squad and as a group, so I'll be very slightly towards them this week.
I mean, the thing about this, though, where Salford are concerned, if momentum, confidence, feel-good factor in sport, if Salford were to win at the weekend, that would be an incredible milestone for the newly formed Salford, wouldn't it? It would do them a world of good.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think I mentioned before about having realistic expectation, realistic ambitions. And I think if Salford can get 3 wins this year, 4 wins this year, that's probably be beyond what they would be anticipating 6 weeks ago. So I think for them to get that first league victory would be an absolute huge milestone for them. And like you said, once they get that first win, they develop that confidence and momentum. Momentum and confidence is a massive thing in sport. And if you get that, then you grow that extra arm, you grow that extra leg. You defend sets that you wouldn't normally defend. You score tries in positions where you wouldn't normally score tries. So as soon as they can get that first victory and start trying to develop that momentum, then they're likely to pick up more victories. But it's just getting over that initial hurdle of getting that first victory that they've got to do.
Absolutely. And then let's go over to Cumbria to finish off. Whitehaven taking on Barrow Raiders. Barrow, of course, 2 wins from 2. Whitehaven, of course, yet to get off the mark. Do you expect a Barrow win here over in Cumbria?
You'd probably say so, the way that Barrow have started offensively and defensively as well. Obviously, we've played Whitehaven twice this year, and we know how tough they can be. I was very, very surprised at the result the previous week against Newcastle, where Newcastle ran a big score up against Whitehaven. And, as I say, having played Whitehaven previously twice in 2 different conditions, I was really impressed with how resilient they were and how hard they worked for each other. So I would imagine back on home soil they'll be looking at having a much improved performance in that Newcastle game that they had as well. So, but yeah, I'm probably veering towards Barrow being too strong on that occasion.
Yeah, and then Widnes Vikings travel to Workington. I'm going to go Widnes on this one. I'll be honest. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Widnes, with the squad that Widnes have got, the way that they're playing, real good performance against Leeds, as we've previously discussed, and Warrington on the back of that heavy defeat against St Helens. So you'd probably tip Widnes on that one and expect them to come through victorious.
Yeah, keep an eye on our socials. Of course, quite a few of these games we would expect to be streamed at the weekend, and we'll keep you posted in terms of which ones are going to be streamed. Of course, Super League is back as well this week, so more than enough rugby league across Championship and Super League for everybody in the week ahead. Craig, as always, really appreciate your time and your company. We get to do it all again next week. Hopefully that game at Halifax does go ahead, and we wish you well on that, and we'll see you same time, same place next week, mate. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
All the best.